It is December 31st, 2023. We are cusping on a new year. This afternoon, I received some slightly distressing news on the personal professional front. Nothing to be worried about. This news came on the heels of my discovery of enjoyment of an experience of a fantastic forgotten classic of a book named Stoner. It was written in 1953 before parlance adapted stoner as a term for somebody who gets high all the time. So this book has an extremely unfortunate title. I want to talk to you a little bit about this book today. I'm feeling a little bit distressed, and I'm also feeling a little bit moved that I just thought I'm going to just crawl out of my girlfriend's parents' summer home, which is a little chilly right now because the fire isn't exactly working. I can't get this wet green wood to light. So I decided to come out anyways. I want to talk to you a little bit about this book, and I want to maybe open up a discussion about the term spirituality and how in our day and age this term is slippery. But a book like Stoner reminds me of how broad the term can be, and that gives me hope. Okay, here we go. Okay, are you ready? Let's begin. The book Stoner starts off with an unnamed narrator telling us that somebody's just died. The guy who just died is named Bill, or William Stoner. William Stoner taught English with an emphasis on medieval studies, right? And he taught it at a college. Some college that was, I think it's like Missouri or I don't know where. I forget. Actually, I don't know where this book is set. It's at a place called Columbia. It's not the Columbia you're thinking of, not the Ivy League University. It's a no-name university in a no-name town. And a no-name professor named William Stoner has just died. And the people, his colleagues in this department, they're going to go through the motions of honoring this no-name nobody. And so they pitch in a few dollars and they purchase, I think it's a book on medieval studies, and within the book they inscribe a message about their colleague Stoner who has died, and they donate the book to the library. Guess what? Nobody reads the book ever. Maybe occasionally a student comes upon the book, but we can consider this book that was donated by his colleagues almost a kind of tombstone, a literary tombstone for this figure who very quickly after he dies recedes from existence completely, disappears. But this novel, the narrator, the point of view, tells us his story, William Stoner's story. It says, I'm going to talk about him now, and I'm going to tell you about this man. I'm in Venezia. There's the ruins of the castle. Venezia, I shot from here last week. It's an old, rundown castle. And I think it's an appropriate setting as I walk through this arboretum and I speak of William Stoner. William Stoner begins the story as a farmer's boy. His mom and his father worked this farm, and it's an American farm. I've learned something. I'm in Croatia right now. They have villages here. I'm in a village right now. They have villages. They always had villages. They had villages going way back. Their cities here in Europe are outgrowths of a village. We don't have that in America. It's a different thing. So the farms here are different. In America, the farms are, you're alone on your farm. Here you're in a village, and your pigs better stay on your property or you're going to get a lot of flack from your neighbor. Your cows better not go grazing in another neighbor's yard. plots are small here, or they were back in the days of villages, and people were crammed together and they had to live these villager lives. Okay, that's really a phenomenon in Croatia. In America, our farms weren't village farms, man. You had your plot of land and you were like on it alone with your wife and your child and your animals and your corn. You're alone on your land. And William Stoner was alone on his land with his mama and his papa. And one day, his father says to him in this laconic, dry, uneducated, straight out of the roots and soil voice, I want you to go to college. I heard that they're teaching some new things about agriculture, and the truth of the matter is, boy, every year I put my hands in the soil, and every year there's less richness and wealth in the soil. And I don't know what's happening, but we're draining the life out of the land. And I need you to go to college and see what all these fancy agriculture professors are talking about. Maybe you can learn something. William Stoner's mama and papa drop him off at the local university, and William Stoner begins a course of study in agriculture. Now, his second year in college, he has this amazing experience. It's an amazing experience. Now listen closely. This is not a religious book. This book, I don't think, ever mentions the word God. But we are humans, and we have spirits. That's what we call it anyway. We could call it souls. We could call it a human spirit. We call it something. We are not dogs yipping at our bowls for more food, and this is the alpha and the omega of our existence. We're people, man. And William Stoner has something like a spiritual-ish type experience. Now, he's sitting there in class, and it's an English class, because I think suddenly he's starting to take more electives. Look at this beautiful view. Hey, P.S., can you hear those explosions in the background? I'm in Croatia, but no, there's no war happening here. It's the fireworks. It's the illegal fireworks. They banned all fireworks because of dogs and birds. My girlfriend told me last night that the birds were having heart attacks because of the fireworks. And the dogs were very upset. And so they banned all fireworks, but it doesn't matter. People are doing fireworks. So anyways, that's what you're hearing in the background. Here we go. So William Stoner is in class, and he's in an English class, and there's this really sarcastic professor. And he's one of these guys, he's just like, hello, kids. We're going to be speaking English today. Perhaps some of you are fluent in this language, but I'm not so sure. The granddaddy of the English language was one William Shakespeare. He mastered the language. Maybe you've heard of him. He's really sarcastic. And he starts speaking of one of the sonnets, one of Shakespeare's sonnets. And the sarcasm disappears. The mask of sarcasm disappears from his face, and he speaks in the voice of Shakespeare, and speaks with the muse coming out of his heart, and it moves the people in his class. These normally stupid, ridiculous, clueless students, whom he does not respect, are moved, and he asks them about this poem. Explain to me the meaning, and none of them can do it. They're all just pea-brained nippleheads, as my dad would say, until he comes to Stoner, and Stoner says, and there's this great description. There's somebody coming now. I'm embarrassed. Okay, Stoner says, I'm going to walk across the field now. I'm going off the path. Not something you should do in a village. You can get hog-tied and strung up for that sort of thing here. But, okay, here we go. We're going off the path. Stoner raises his hands, and these hands that have been in the earth. There's a great line about Stoner's father, where Stoner's father is thinking about how he wants his son to go to college. And his father looks at his own hands, and he sees the cracks in his hands from the manual labor. And he sees the dirt that is part of his fingers, the brownness that will never go away because he's worked his hands in the soil so much, right? So there is an element of our hero stoner comes from the soil of planet Earth. It comes from people then who worked the soil. And now in this moment, it's a kensho, it's an epiphany, it's a satori, it's a moment of awakening. You don't have to be Catholic to believe in grace. You don't have to be Buddhist to have an experience of satori. You don't have to be Jewish to experience Yahweh. You don't have to be Hindu or Muslim to experience the apex of those systems. You gotta be human, that's it. So he raises his hands. And he raises his hands and he says, it means. And he's raising his hand. He can't say what it means. He's going to spend the rest of his life living for what it means, living for literature. He changes his major to literature. Okay, you're being patient. I look silly in my glasses and my hat. I look like a fucking kindergartner. I look like I'm on my way to kindergarten in this hat. Okay, anyways, my arm is getting tired, but we're going to keep on going here. Where was I? Okay, so stoner, medieval, he graduates. And he tells his dad, I can't come back to the farm. Oh, and by the way, I majored in English. I got a literature degree. Mom starts crying. Dad looks down at his broken, tired, permanently dirt-stained hands and says, go for it, basically. Now, Stoner gets a graduate degree. I'm a little bit fuzzy now on what happened. I've expended a lot of energy on the first part of this book. The second part of this book, what the fudge happens? Okay, hold on, I gotta think. There's something this book is doing. It's saying you get sometimes certain lives, you only get a tiny bit of happiness, of opportunity, and yet that's 100% of the happiness and the opportunity and the joy you will experience. And so that's 100% enough. That's way my own interpretation. But it's not a book that is disrespectful towards its main protagonist. It's so thoughtful and so gentle as it brings us deeper and deeper into the heart and mind of this very gentle college professor. Now, one thing begins to happen as he starts to teach. He realizes that none of his love of literature, none of what made him give up farming and pursue the written word is present in a single solitary one of his lectures. Dude is boring. He's flat. It's a Coke that's been left out all afternoon. No carbonation in his scholastic lectures, okay? Flat, not fizzy. And he hates this about himself. And he doesn't know what to do about it. Meanwhile, I'm listening to this on audiobook, by the way, which I never do. I never listen to great books on audiobook. I listen to basically nonfiction. So this has been a real discovery to hear this book. It's a story I'm being told. So, and I fell asleep during this part. He meets a girl somehow. He meets a woman. What's her name? It's not Catherine. That's somebody who comes later. It's Edith. Oh, it's an Edith, right? Edith. Wasn't that Edith Bunker? Wasn't that Archie Bunker's wife? It's not a name that inspires like heat on a romantic or sexual level. Sorry to any Ediths out there. So he meets Edith, and now there's a wonderful, wonderful unfolding of an utterly failed relationship. And I think there were a lot of relationships like this in the 50s, this would be in the 20s or 30s, actually. You know, they're two inexperienced kids, and they just kind of fall together, and she doesn't know who she is. She's supposed to go to Europe with her aunt, and she's going to see Europe. She's a kid, you know, in her like early 20s probably, and he's in his early 20s, and they're just kids, and they've never even kissed or held a hand before. And this relationship happens because they both don't know what they're doing. Sometimes you just like it when someone likes you. You like that about them, that they like you. What you don't know is they think you like them, and they like that about you. And suddenly you're in a relationship with this person and you don't really know who they are or have a real strong bond or attraction to them. And that's kind of what happens in this book. They get married and it's a flat marriage and the wedding night is horrible. She drinks too much champagne and she vomits and she apologizes for vomiting. And then I assume they make a kind of horrible love. And thereafter, this figure of Edith becomes a profound antagonist. One of the most horrific villains in Western literature is my current take on this Edith Stoner. Meanwhile, she's really just dealing with her deep unhappiness, okay? And so there are scenes that begin to show her estrangement from Stoner and vice versa. Because the sun is going down, because it is December 31st and a new year is upon us, and I should probably shave and shower and go and have a cup of wine with my dear girlfriend Tony. Because that is the case, I will now try and hit the bullseye of this point. We experience a really dark time in Stoner's life. And this really moved me because it reminded me of some shit I went through at the monastery at the end there, politics. Like, you know, like your life, my life, like we're not fucking heroes, you know? I'm just a guy with a selfie stick and a outdated iPhone babbling about an old book. I don't know what your story is, but if you're watching this, you know, et cetera, right? But our lives are so alive for us, and our conflicts are real. They're flipping real. And Stoner experiences a great conflict in his life. His colleague, who becomes the head of the English department, wants a student to be allowed to study in the graduate program, and Stoner is quite rightly convinced that the student is a piece of shite and should not ever be allowed in a graduate program, much less teaching kids. And Stoner stands up for himself. He does the right thing. And here's what happens. He gets crushed. His colleague has it out for him. And nobody comes to Stoner's defense. And this is what happens a lot of time in life. Like, this is what happens when you become an adult. Like, people don't want to stick their neck out for you. They don't want to do the right thing if it means that it will affect them. Like, they decide that that's not the hill they're going to die on. Well, Stoner decides he is going to die on this hill because he wants to keep idiots out of the front of classrooms. He doesn't want idiots teaching kids literature. Literature gave him meaning. It means meaning. And this guy is going to be a terrible teacher that he's preventing from teaching. And so Stoner's colleague really wants this student who's named Walker to come into the graduate program. When Stoner says no and votes against it, Stoner gets screwed. He gets screwed hard. He gets all his upper level graduate courses taken away from him. He has to teach a bunch of freshmen. He has to teach at odd days of the week. So he begins to get exhausted. And he begins to question the meaning of life. And then one day he meets a beautiful undergraduate student. He meets a beautiful undergraduate student. And you know what? She's like him. She's not undergraduate. I think she's graduate because she's actually teaching some courses. Well, they begin an affair, and it's so beautifully and tenderly described. They are shy people, and it takes them a long time to begin to touch each other. After lots of conversation, lots of warm, dignified, gentle back and forth over a great period of time, eventually they become lovers. And then their love is discovered. I'm sort of jumping around now, jumping ahead a little bit because it's getting dark. Their love is discovered, and in the saddest freaking chapters I've ever experienced in a book, they have to break the relationship up. And it's just how this book goes. It's just how some lives go. Okay, so now frankly, I don't know how the book ends, okay? Because I've got 2 more hours of it on the audiobook. It's like a 9-hour audiobook. and the sun is going down anyways, so I wouldn't have time for it. So if you like what I've told you so far, you're going to have to get this book and realize it for yourself. I just want to close this rambling in the increasing dark video about this beautiful book, Stoner, with a plea for the human, and a plea for us to define the human on spiritual terms. Like, as we get in this weirder era where maybe even human jobs are going to get replaced with AI, but certainly a lot of our tasks are going to be replaced by artificial intelligence, and more and more of our lives are consumed with machines and algorithms and, I don't know, bioengineering, and the quest to leave this planet and to become an interplanetary spacefaring species. Like, it's hard to know what the spiritual project is in this context, but William Stoner and we hold that the spiritual project is there, innate in our hearts. It's a tiny pulse in the bottom of our being that can respond to something like a great lecture about literature, as Stoner responded to in college. It can respond to a Bach sonata, or just a smile from a child. It can respond to the crackling of a fire. And I say, listen for those moments. Don't give up on your life, no matter how small it seems, no matter how much it seems like you just have to endure the petty and bullshit of daily life as we age and our bones creak and our skin sags and our blood pressures rise and our children's patience with us decreases, and we are slowly forgotten. Maybe even the human species is slowly forgotten. Maybe the AI will take over. Maybe we'll merge with the AI. It seems unlikely that this strange, upright ape walking around with fake fur, which is what clothing and caps are, and on what used to be back paws, now they're legs, and I've got these front paws which are strangely withered and have this opposable thumb that allows me to grab things like books and opportunities and create. I'm just a blip. The human race is just a blip on this planet, and it seems likely we will evolve into something else. And it seems as though we're at one of those inflection points or breaking moments where that evolution is going to maybe take a leap. And we don't necessarily know what it means to be human anymore. And we don't know what it means to trust in the Spirit, or trust in God, or live by the Dharma, or however you want to put it. But whatever the impulse is that gave rise to the religions that our ancestors developed and which most of us have rejected, that impulse is deeply alive within us still. I believe it makes our lives worth it, makes it meaningful. It gives us strength and also softness and suppleness and openness. So I don't know what the point of this video is in closing, except that thank God for great pieces of art that speak to the human spirit and remind us of our birthright and our dignity as beings. When so often it seems like life's just a grind, just a flat, uncarbonated, fizz-free grind. You know, you get a book, you get a book like that says, but there are beautiful moments, aren't there? And the beautiful moments are 100% beautiful. And if you just have one beautiful moment in your whole life, then your whole life, all the brown, gray, muddy roots of that life pushed up through the murky, horrible waters of this world to produce that one lotus flower of a moment. And that's enough. All hail the infinite beauty of each moment. And if there's only one good one your whole life, so be it. I have spoken after a lot of rambling. So thank you for listening. As always, if you like this, even if you don't like it, you can support this channel on patreon.com/showsonjackhaubner. I'd appreciate that. It's becoming real important to my bottom line, Patreon, and it's wonderful. And you can join the community there, which is a wonderful, wonderful community. They're like my community. They're my spiritual community. They're my spiritual community. They're my Sangha. They're my peeps. And if you want to join us over there, you can. And you can read some essays I've written, some blog posts I've written, some videos I've shot, and you can leave comments. You can message me your gull darn ideas, questions, thoughts. Just throw it out there to yours truly, and I'm the catcher's mitt that will receive them. I don't know what that means. Hit like, hit subscribe, hit notifications, and have a wonderful new year, folks. Ciao.